Let's Talk Loughborough, the podcast from Loughborough University that brings you interesting interviews from staff and students all across our campus, as well as our latest news. I'm your host, Jemima. I'm a student here at Loughborough studying English with Digital Humanities, and I'm currently on my placement year in the university's digital team.
And I'm Soph, I'm Jemima's co-host, and I'm the Internal Communications Officer at Loughborough, looking after staff and student comms.
So today we are here joined by Elliott and Jenny from the University Sustainability Team and Polly from the Loughborough Greens, which is a student organisation here on campus.
Yeah, so my name's Elliott. I've been part of the sustainability team since 2010. Loughborough grad before that point, so been here for quite a while now. So my particular focus is on sustainable travel and then just wider general sustainability engagement as well.
And I'm Jenny. I've been part of the sustainability team for about 14 years now. My main focus is generally on utilities and utilities invoicing, but I also do a lot of work around raising awareness on both energy use and generally sort of sustainability as a whole.
Hi, I'm Polly and I'm the Chair of Loughborough Greens Society here at Loughborough University. I'm a final year geography student, and Loughborough Greens is a community society that you can just join if you're looking for a space to be sustainable, swap sustainability tips and meet like-minded people who want to mitigate and help adapt to climate change.
Fab, thank you. So every episode we have a bit of an icebreaker question just to get to know each other a little bit. So today's question is, what was your dream job when you were little?
I always wanted to be a teacher. I admittedly now I have children, I'm not so keen on the idea, but when I was younger, the whole idea of being a teacher and teaching sort of primary school children sounded wonderful, but yeah, not so much now.
No, I definitely got, as a kid, everyone told me to be a teacher when I was little, because I loved being with the little kids and teaching them, and then I realised very quickly that's just not what I wanted to do. I respect all the teachers out there, they're really going through it, but they're amazing.
I wanted to be an astronaut, although I feel like I'm still pretty young. I don't think I could be an astronaut now, but still yeah, I always wanted to go to space. On the moon, really. The moon always really interested me. Don't know why. I don't think we've been there since, not since, but soon. I don't think we've been there recently to the moon, so maybe there's a chance I could be the next one. Who knows?
Who knows? I'll watch out for all the news. Polly's going to the moon. Elliott, what about you?
I actually wanted to be a chef when I was younger. So I actually used to love cooking. My mum used to force us as kids, my siblings, we used to have to cook one night a week as for the family. So it kind of ignited my passion there. And I was completely put off though when I went and did work experience. The social hours, you go into the kitchens and the restaurants. I didn't get the glamorous jobs, obviously being 16, 17, washing pots and stuff. But getting to see how the kitchens work and just the amount of effort and the time that they're there till, it's insane. So yeah, all credit to the chefs out there as well, because they're not the most sociable hours.
What would be the one meal that you would cook someone, say a friend came round? What is your go-to? I'm going to really impress you here.
I make a pretty mean toad in the hole. Yeah, with a nice balsamic onion gravy.
Very fancy. Yeah. Balsamic onion gravy. You know what? Maybe we'll try one time. So, what did you want to be when you were little?
So I think we've had this question before, and I said singer, but another one that I wanted to be was a vet. But I faint at the sight of blood, so that career path got cut short very, very fast. I think I also cry when I see all animals, so I just would be a mess, just fainting and crying every day at work. It just doesn't sound like a sustainable option. So unfortunately, couldn't do it. What about you, Jemima?
When I was little, I wanted to be one of two things. I either wanted to be an actress, which died out very, very late. Till I was 16, I realised I can't make it. Or I wanted to be a writer. I used to love writing stories when I was little, and I had this amazing year 5 teacher who used to tell stories about the whole class. She'd make up these random stories where a bug would bite us and we'd go back in time as a class, and she'd include everyone. But that ignited my love of writing and stuff, hence my degree being English. So I don't think any of those two things will happen now. Don't think I'll be winning a Grammy anytime soon, but definitely it's very funny to see how our jobs when we were little kind of contribute to who we are now and what we're doing now. So we'll just jump right into the questions. So the first question is, how important is sustainability to the university?
I think sustainability has been very important to the university for a long time. I mean, as a sustainability team, we've been established sort of 14 years, 15 years now, and there's so many aspects of the work we've done that have been going on sort of since we started 15 odd years ago. And we've got things like campaigns like It's Better Off, that has been around, that was here before even I started. So obviously the idea of saving energy has been really important right from the start. Fruit routes, that's been established over 10 years now. I think that's kind of 12, creeping on for 12 years now. So again, another aspect of what we do that's really important. We've had sustainable travel plans since 2010. We've focused on recycling and how we manage our waste. But again, since before I was here, it's always been kind of looked after and managed. Student Green League, or its previous guises in the halls. Again, that was here pre-me, so sort of 15 plus years ago. We've been looking at things like green technologies, and we've had things like CHP in place 15 years plus, low carbon technologies 15 years plus. So it's always been on the university's agenda. It's always been really important. Sometimes the swing might have been slightly more towards carbon. Sometimes it's sort of, there's a financial aspect to it. Sometimes it's just exploring new technologies. But I think the whole kind of idea of being sustainable and reducing carbon has been on the university's agenda for a really long time.
Yeah, I think just worth moving on from that. I think a lot of the stuff that Jenny spoke about was quite probably campus focused and kind of operational focused in terms of what we do day to day. And I think hopefully most people at the university are aware now that it's one of the 3 core themes of the new university strategy. The theme title being climate change and net zero. So now it's actually at the forefront of what we want to do as a university. It should be starting to be built in, not just in terms of our operations, but also our processes, our policies, our strategies. Everything that we develop now moving forward should be aligned with that key kind of climate change and net zero aspect. So it's really at the forefront of what we're trying to do. I think it's really important to understand that we as a university have a significant impact on the climate, and we have a significant impact on CO2 emissions that we do. And I think based on our calculations, we're just under 100,000 tons of CO2 per year that we actually emit as a university, and that's from all our different activities, the scope 1, 2 and 3, which we'll potentially touch on in a bit more detail later on. But that's indirect and direct emissions of a university activity. So it's a really big chunk of CO2. So we have an obligation to the university, knowing the impact that has on the climate, to really start to look at how we can drive that down. Like Jenny says, we've been doing that for 15 years already, and we've seen some reductions in certain areas, but there's still a lot of areas that we've really got to work on and tackle. So yeah, basically now the next step is about how we embed sustainability into everything that we do. It becomes just a habit. It becomes just the norm, really. So yeah, it's a really crucial thing.
And like Polly, moving on, like how does sustainability as a student impact you in like a university context? Because I think we've seen a lot of how it's important to the university and what the university is doing, but as a student on the flip side, like what sustainability mean to you, but also how you're implementing it in Loughborough Greens?
So yeah, I mean, sustainability is super important. And I think we're seeing this now, like, especially with our generation, with the Fridays for Future campaign, with Greta, with everything, it's really big in our minds. And I mean, personally, I study geography, so climate change is basically all of my course. So I'm a little bit, different in that way, in that I see it in every day when I go to lectures. But I know it's coming through in a lot of other disciplines as well. But I think it's really huge, like just for students in general right now. Like everyone's thinking about it. Everyone is trying to recycle, kind of deal with food waste, reduce single-use plastics. And then obviously we've had enough people that want to get involved in it at a community level to have Loughborough Greens running for the last 2 years. So yeah, as a society, we are just kind of there to help you promote how to be sustainable in Loughborough. For example, you've got the Eco Replenishers shop in Baxter Gate, which actually have a student discount for whoever's listening. If you go there, show your student ID. And it's just kind of a place to kind of come together, and say, okay, I've realized this is going to be a huge issue for me, for my children. I really want to help being more sustainable. How do I do it? And you come together to show like you're not alone. It is a difficult thing to do, you know. You feel kind of at an individual level, you don't really have that much power. So it helps it feel better to have a community that are all doing this kind of thing. And yeah, we bring people together. We go and we support small businesses. We show people, you know, kind of innovative ways to reduce single-use plastic, like instead of cling film, using I don't know if you've seen it, kind of the beeswax covers that are reusable. Yeah. Those obviously, you know, the normal tote bags, reusable water bottles. And we love Martin Lewis. He's great when it comes to kind of saving electricity, saving power, you know, making sure, you know, preferably don't use the tumble dryer, try and use a clothing rack, or make sure that all of the plugs are turned off when you're not using something. So yeah, just kind of a space where people can come together, where like say, I want to be sustainable, not sure how to do it, and feel supported and share ideas.
It's really interesting that Polly's mentioned that, and a lot of what she's touching on is about education and how we educate things. And I think when we're talking about how important sustainability is to university, I think it's really important as a university that we're educating our, not just our student population, but our staff population. What we're talking 20,000 plus people on site, where actually we can have a real impact. I feel like as a university we're obligated to educate and develop them, not just in what they've chosen to do as a course, but in kind of everyday challenges that we're going to face in the future. So like climate change, actually helping them have that knowledge and that understanding. So if you think about the impact that if we can educate those 20,000 people and make them more literate in carbon, more literate in environmental awareness, the impact that they can have when they then go out into the wider world, whether that's within sports clubs, when they go work in a different place, it's huge. And I think that's where actually as a university it can be really important for us to actually make sure that we're on that right track, and we're developing our students and our staff members so that they are aware, they are educated in what they can and cannot do.
Thank you. That's like really interesting points that you both bring, and like through this podcast hopefully we can educate and signpost people to like the right resources, especially like if you want to know more, because I think like the misconception of sustainability is just recycle, which is really, really good, please recycle, but also there is a lot more that goes into it, and like there is easy ways and easy switches to make it a lot more sustainable, a lot more eco-friendly. So sustainability is part of our strategy here at a university, and it's what we're working towards. So Jenny and Elliott, can you tell us what the university sustainability goals are?
So from, I suppose, sustainability's got many different areas. From a carbon reduction perspective, as Elliott mentioned, we've got scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions, and just to break them down a little bit, the scope 1 and 2 is the fuel that we use on campus, so our gas and our electricity for heating and powering our buildings, and there's also sort of fleet vehicles in there as well. And then the scope 3 emissions, which cover kind of everything else, so everything from kind of what we buy, how we travel, it covers everything else. So looking at the scope 1 and 2 side of things, the actual fuel side of things, the goal is to be net zero by 2035. As we said, this is the heating, how we power things. The scope 1 and 2 make up roughly 20-ish% of our total emissions based on the baseline that we did 2019-20. So the goal is to get that down to zero. That's roughly 19,000 tonnes of carbon per year that we've got to source from elsewhere, source our fuel from elsewhere. There's big challenges around this. It's how on earth do we kind of replace our 40 megawatt gas powered thermal infrastructure across the campus? What do we replace that with? There's kind of no technologies out there at the moment that would just plug and play in at the moment. So we've got to look at what's out there moving into the future, and what we will probably find is for the next 10 years or so, we'll continue where we are with our scope 1 emissions, and then suddenly we'll have a big step change as we have this piece of technology that we can put in that will fill that gap and take us significantly down on our scope 1 and 2 emissions. I mean, things we are looking at, we're looking at the East Coast Hydrogen Network, and how we could benefit from that in the future. It is going to be in the future. It's not something that's available to us now, but that's looking at replacing the gas network with hydrogen, and there's different types of hydrogen that are a lot more carbon efficient than fossil fuels, the gas, things like that. We're looking at on-site generations, so solar PV. We could in the future, you never know, have our own solar farm out on the Lucep area out there. It could happen. It's all things we've got to look at, whether we can generate our own power, whether we move to kind of electric heating, so heat pumps and things like that. And then what emerging technologies are going to come out. I mean, we have some of the most amazing minds on campus, and we've got sort of another 20 years to meet this target. So what technologies are going to come out? What are we going to be able to take from the minds we have working on campus with us now?
I think Jenny's obviously touched quite a lot on scope 1 and 2 in terms of the fuels and things that we use. I think something that obviously that's roughly 20% of our emissions. And then our scope 3 emissions, which is all our indirect emissions associated with our university activities. So that's business travel. It's getting our students to the university at the start of the year and at the end of the year, and them going home. That all counts towards our emissions. So if you imagine getting 17,000 students here from across the world, has a massive impact. I think travel equates to roughly 39% of our emissions, manufacturing, staff commute, student commute, and our business travel. So it's a huge percentage, and actually we've got to do a lot of work to understand the data, improve the data collection before we can really start to narrow that down. And I think that's echoed in our net zero target for scope 3 at the moment. We've just said 2050, because actually we are still really trying to understand the data. So before we set ourselves a target that we don't even know if we can achieve, we just want to understand the data a little bit more. We're probably at our infancy within that. So the hope is that 2050 target, you'll see that starting to move more in line with the scope 1 and 2 target as we start to understand the data, a lot of that's reliant on information we get from our suppliers, which a lot of suppliers aren't geared up to contain that information as well. So I think some of the other stuff that we're looking at doing as well is we signed up to the Sustainable Development Goal, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We're a signatory of that back in 2019. So we had a bit of a pause of that with COVID in terms of trying to embed that, but that's something that we'll be picking up very much now in terms of how we align what we do as a university within the Sustainable Development Goals. So the Sustainable Development Goals are 17 goals basically, and it's not just about a lot of people think about sustainability in very much a climate sense, whereas the Sustainable Development Goals is about wider sustainable development. So it's looking at ending poverty, food, economic growth, decent wages. So it's about that broad spectrum, including climate stuff as well. It's about that broad spectrum of sustainable development across the world. So that's something that we're looking at aligning our activities more closely with. So actually that we are having an impact in all of those areas. We're also really keen in terms of our goal is protecting our green campus. So we're really unique position. We've got this amazing green campus. Whenever you work on open days or whenever you see people coming to campus, they always comment on how nice it is, how well it looked. It's all maintained by our own staff, and they do an amazing job of that. But as with anywhere, there's more and more pressure being put on nature. Nature doesn't necessarily respond and react to climate change as well as some other things do. So we've got an obligation to protect that. You might have seen recently that we just signed up for the Nature Positive University Alliance. So that's a kind of combination with universities where we've made a commitment to enhancing the biodiversity and the green spaces on campus, and making sure that they remain protected moving forward. We've done some great work around sports and nature, and we recently launched a Sports for Nature report in collaboration with the UN, with some lead academics from the Loughborough University campus. So there's loads that we're doing around biodiversity, looking after the campus. We have obligations with our development to, it's called biodiversity net gain. So when we're building buildings or refurbing buildings, as part of our planning consent, we have to show where we're actually going to enhance biodiversity. So increase it by 5, 10, 50% over what it was before we did any work there. So some really cool stuff that we're doing around that and what we want to achieve and how we develop then there's just a bit more around developing a campus that's also adaptable to climate change. It's already here. We're already seeing the impact of climate change on campus. Obviously, the record-breaking temperatures. I think recently, earlier this week, they just announced that it's the highest year on record ever in the UK. So how's that going to impact climate? How are our buildings going to adapt to that?
Thank you, Elliot. That's really interesting to kind of hear about the goals that the university have. And I didn't really, naively didn't think about how the students getting here and leaving at the end of the year obviously contributes, as well as our staff commutes as well. That's kind of more in my mind because I commute, but I hadn't even thought about the fact that, yeah, that's a lot of students coming at one time from all over the world. So that is really interesting to think about. Polly, I don't know if you've got anything to add from your side, what the goals Loughborough Greens have for kind of the upcoming year.
So yeah, what Jenny was mentioning about kind of, new technology is emerging all the time, and obviously, Loughborough is one of the, the UK's leading research unis. We recently had we ran a climate assembly with Loughborough Uni Arts, and we had kind of some of the senior members of the sustainability team and the leadership team there, and we were talking about potentially integrating like a uni-wide competition to kind of come up with a sustainable technology or a sustainable system that would combat these issues, kind of look at innovation that could be done there, research that could be done on campus that could make the campus more sustainable and tackle this, the exact issues of how do we reduce Scope 1 emissions. So yeah, that definitely ties in there. And then kind of Loughborough Greens goals. We obviously, Elliot mentioned the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So when you think of sustainability, most people just jump to climate change because it's, the thing that's at the forefront of our mind. It is a global issue. But there's 17 goals and there's loads of different ones, kind of quality of education. I'm just trying to think now off the top. Now I've said 17. I'm sure, I'm like, what are they? But yeah, there's loads of different ones. So last year we kind of had a focus on period poverty, actually, because one of the goals also obviously gender equality. And then this year we're kind of moving more towards reducing waste, especially in terms of fast fashion and food waste. So Loughborough Greens this year, we're kind of focusing on trying to reduce fast fashion with students because, with a student community of 17,000, that's a lot of people that are buying lots of clothes, especially for different nights out and freshers, etc. So last semester we had a Halloween costume clothes swap. So you'd kind of, instead of buying a new one, you would bring in your old costumes and swap for someone else. So then you're not contributing to fast fashion that way. And we are this is a bit of a shameless plug, but I'm going to do it. We are running a campaign off the back of refreshers for, okay, it's a mouthful, Fast Fashion Free February. So it's a mouthful. But basically, we're going to have as many students as possible sign up and commit to not purchasing any fast fashion February. And we're going to both start and end it with huge Loughborough Town charity shop crawls, where in order also to buy something from the charity shop, you then need to donate something as well.
That's amazing.
Our goals this year.
That sounds great. Can I put in a request that staff get involved in the no buying fast fashion for February? Because I love Vinted. I'm down for that. I'm down for just having loads of time on Vinted this February.
Fantastic. No, yeah, Vinted, Depop. I didn't even consider staff, but no, definitely. I think that'd be a great way to get involved, especially if they're up for it. I feel like it's more of a student thing to use Vinted and Depop, but if we can definitely get staff involved, yeah, that would have such a great impact.
No, I love the idea of no fast fashion February. There we go. Because I am unfortunately a consumer, as like every student is. I love my ASOS next day delivery as much as the next gal. It's terrible. But definitely, like, charity shopping is also a great way to get involved in sustainability, and you can get some really, really cool stuff. I don't think people understand, like, there's some great finds in Loughborough charity shops. But thank you both for like introducing the different like goals that we have for students and staff and for everyone on campus. And it's really interesting to see the different viewpoints. The next question, which Elliot touched on slightly, especially like with the rising temperature of the UK, is what impact is climate change having on how the university operates?
As Elliot touched on, 2022 as a year was quite exciting when it came to graduations for us here at Loughborough. I think we had the hottest day of the year and the coldest day of the year. So yes, we hosted graduations in 40-degree plus temperatures and in minus temperatures more recently in December. And we can see the impact it's having on us. It's hard to host events in these excessive temperatures. It causes an absolute nightmare for us. Our buildings are not designed to work kind of above probably late 20s, early 30s, because that's the temperatures the UK has always kind of seen. This year certainly pushed the boundaries of what is possible, and yeah, our buildings are struggling, and this is potentially something as a university we're going to have to consider as we move forward. How do we cope with these massive swings in temperatures? How do we build our buildings to be efficient, energy efficient, but yeah, also handle these massive extremes in temperatures? And what is the weather, the climate going to throw at us over the next decades to come?
These climate extremes that we're seeing, they're going to become more frequent. We're going to have longer periods of heat. We're going to have these cold snaps. So cold snaps might be less frequent, but we're going to still have these significant cold snaps. So it is something that's definitely going to impact us. And then actually, when you think about what's the campus going to look like in the future, to combat this stuff is actually, are we going to have to look at putting in green corridors through campus? So planting of trees to provide shading for people to walk. Little simple things like that. There's things you can do with blue space, so putting in water features, ponds, lakes, stuff that actually can have a natural cooling effect, help biodiversity, provide resources for our habitat. I think there's a huge risk of biodiversity and habitat loss or change to that on our campus. We have numerous species of animals that call this place home as well as us, and actually these temperatures are going to impact all of them. So actually, when you think kind of blue sky thinking, what the campus might look like, could look a very different place in 10, 15, 20 years time as we start to build and develop, having to put in some of these things that are going to allow us to adapt to climate change. So it's just something that's really important. I think one really clear example of what we've had to do with a building more recently, in kind of, I think it only opened, and Jenny might correct me wrong, but I think it only opened last year, is the new tennis centre extension that was built. That's actually had to be built on stilts. Now, you might not see it from looking from the outside. It's not your traditional wooden stilts 30 metres in the air that you might see on Google Images. If you Google it, it's kind of low level, built from brick stilts, but actually that's because it's been built onto a floodplain. And actually, when we were doing the planning permission, the flood risk, the Environment Agency changed the flood risk event. It was originally assessed at being once every 70 years, that there'd be a major flood risk event there. But by the time we went to actually building it, that dropped down to once every 10 years. So it basically meant that it's likely that there's going to be a major flood risk in that area every 10 years rather than every 70 years. And then all of a sudden, that meant that we had to build a completely different building. At higher cost. We had to put it all and raise everything on stilts. So if you go into that building now, you'll notice that you go from one set, the old set of tennis courts, you actually go up steps to go onto the next set of tennis courts because it's raised. So that's as a result of what we anticipate to have higher flood risk events. So higher rainfall frequencies and intensities, where we have that snap of maybe 24 hours of really high rainfall, that's likely to flood that area of campus. So we are already seeing the impacts of climate change. It's not something that's in the distant future, it's already here. It's now just trying to think about how we're going to adapt to it and what the implications are moving forward as well.
So we've talked a lot about this already, but I'm sure there's more things that staff and students can get involved in sustainability here at Loughborough, whether that be at the university or, if you know anything, just Loughborough town-wide, that our staff and students can get involved with.
Yeah, I think there's a few things for both staff and students to get involved with, and some small bits I touched on. I think we've spoken a lot of stuff already. One thing which we launched this year, which is for our students, is the Sustainability Ambassadors Programme. So that's in its infancy. We launched that last term. I think I don't know the exact number, but I know we've got a good handful of people already signed up to that, and that's basically just about them aligning themselves a little bit more with us as a team. So it allows them and allows us to have a resource where actually they might come and help us with events. They might get involved with different bits, helping us communicate some messaging out there. But also on the flip side of them kind of giving us some help from that side of stuff, we're also helping with their development. So we're running trips. This might not sound very glamorous, but we're actually taking out the student ambassadors down to Ember, who are our waste contractor. And we're actually taking them to the place where all our waste goes, so that they can actually go and see it, and they can actually go and see what it's like. I mean, I've been there. It's really eye-opening what the impact of our waste going to that place, the recycle plant, and what the people there are doing to kind of improve the recycle rates as it goes through the process. And actually, it doesn't sound the most glamorous, but it is super interesting. But we're doing things like that because these people have engaged with us and they want to know more about the processes. They want to learn more about how things work. So that's something that we kind of offer back in terms of them working with us. Something I direct a lot of people towards, and this is both staff and students, is we've just put up a learning and development page on our website. So this is a page full of free resources. So it's got the Essentials training package, which at the moment is just aimed at staff, but we are looking at developing a student version. But it's also got Open University has about 10,000 free courses that are sustainability related that you can go on and do. You can get badges for your LinkedIn page as a student. There's all these different free resources that are available online, blogs, books. We've kind of put loads of links and different things to direct people out to that. So that's a really good resource that people can go and just get a bit more information and enhance their knowledge in different areas that they're interested in. And alongside that, we're also working with organisational development to look at the different training packages that we offer across the university. And then finally, like just the last bit from me in terms of, I just say just follow us on our social media as well. A little bit of a plug, but we're constantly trying to post in there, tell people what we're up to and different events and how people can get involved. So
yeah, I mentioned the Eco Replenishers store, which is in town kind of by Nando's, but they also are doing a pop-up shop. I think it's every Tuesday at EHB. So just outside EHB from 12:30 to 4, you can go, you can see kind of what things they've got, like washing up liquid, oats, spices, flour, that kind of thing. And obviously you just bring your own jars, bring your own containers, and they measure by weight. And then also, I think it's a national thing now, all bus journeys are capped at £2, like single fare bus journeys. Yeah, they're all capped at £2 for, well, I don't know how long it will carry on for, but at least now, and hopefully for 3 months. So obviously, you know, the bus is a great, or any public transport is a great alternative to bringing your car up and driving. Obviously, the uni bus is also free. Most people, I feel like it's known and also not known, it's actually free from the college to get into the uni, but it's not free to go back. So you can only go back to the union, but you can get it from the college. But that's still good to know that you can get it from the college. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, Too Good to Go. This is a great app. If you kind of are wanting a takeaway, or you know, just you want a snack, Too Good to Go. You just sign up, you put in your area, and it'll show you cafe shops, kind of thinking Greg's, or actually Loughborough do it with Toby Carvery. So you can so basically what it is, it's an app, and they're with all these retailers, and any kind of waste food they have at the end of the day that hasn't been sold, they will give it to you at a discount in these bags. You don't know what you're getting, but you know, say in Grotos, you'll, I don't know, the bag will cost £3, and then you'll get like 4 sausage rolls and a donut and a cake in there, or you know, a sandwich that was left over at the end of the day. So that's a great way to reduce food wastage. And I'm thinking it's coming up to exam season. There are loads of apps where you can plant a tree and then you will kill that tree if you go on your phone. So I think it's called Flora. But it's a great way to focus. Flora is the one that I use, where it will start planting a tree and donating money to kind of, you know, reforesting in the Amazon rainforest. And then if you go on your phone, it will kill the tree. So it's a great way to make sure that you keep focused on revision. And likewise, there are similar search engines like that. The biggest one I can think of, which is really good, is Ecosia. So ECOSIA. Great alternative to Google to use, that then plants trees and contributes to reforestation charities with every search you use. I think that's everything off the top of my head. Oh yeah, and join Loughborough Greens Society. There we go. Don't know why that wasn't the first one I said. And follow at Loughborough Greens on University and at Sustainable Loughborough. Oh no, on Instagram. Yeah.
All the things I've got to say don't sound quite as exciting as everybody else's. Anyway, I'll do a shameless plug on the website. So the sustainability website, if you go onto the Loughborough University website and put in sustainability, will pop up on there at www.lboro.ac.uk and go /sustainability. On there are all the links to all our social media. There's links into the union websites as well. So you'll be able to pick up loads of information off there. What I'm going to kind of throw out there is that actually kind of everybody already is involved. If you're recycling on campus, if you're switching off on campus, you're already in there, you're already involved, which is great. Yes, there's always a little bit more that everybody can do. Just switching a little something extra off, setting that good example, reporting something that you find that just isn't right, isn't working right, it just isn't working. Report it, 'cause it's those things that build up to make bigger differences, and it's the little things that do make a difference. Kind of as a heads up, really, there's a couple of other bits and pieces. We recycle stationery on campus, and it's dead easy. The creative and print team, if you've got stationery that your school department, etc., no longer need, if you put that in a bag and pop it next to your postal point, they'll take it off and it'll get put out and re-promoted to students to reuse their stationery. So it's things like pens, folders, I don't know, hole punches, staplers, anything that you no longer need, you can just pop it out there. It all gets taken away for somebody else to use. I'm also going to mention about the Carbon Action Plan. Now, this is being launched pretty much as we speak now. The Carbon Action Plan is this fabulous online tool that all schools, all professional services, everybody can log on and create a personalised carbon action plan to reduce carbon in their school or department. All the actions, so we put generic actions in, but you can actually put your own actions in well, and all the actions within it are about reducing carbon. So as these actions come to light, they'll generate things that everybody can get involved with right the way through the school and the department. Now, we've already launched this in halls. I think all the halls have now signed up and started to create action plans, and in exactly the same way they create their own actions, and this will give the opportunity for the students in halls to get involved with all these different actions and start really pushing towards carbon reductions in their areas. The other one I'm going to throw out there is volunteering opportunities. So Polly, you may know a lot more about this than I do, but I believe there's a lot of opportunities for students through action. I think I might be a little bit out of date on this information, but I believe you can kind of state that you'd like to do sort of environmentally based or sustainability based actions when you sign up, which gives you the opportunity. In the past, we've done things like tree plantings and things like that. So there's volunteering opportunities there. And for staff, we're working on some information at the moment that will be available through the Carbon Action Planner. And you can actually use the employer volunteering policy, which gives you 3 hours of volunteering that you can do. And we're sort of looking at compiling, I suppose, a list and some contacts for places that you could get involved with. But otherwise, just, enjoy the campus, get involved and enjoy the campus. We're so lucky we have this beautiful, beautiful campus all around us. Get out there, enjoy it, appreciate it.
No, I think that's a great point, especially about the campuses. Most people I don't think know that Burley Woods even exists or is part of the campus, because it's beautiful, kind of beyond the millions of pictures at Holywell. I mean, I didn't know it existed, to be honest, until I did a fieldwork trip there, measuring soil. But that's something I love to do. But it's lovely there, and you've got the bluebells as well. So yeah, I definitely think not enough people know that exists. And it's so beautiful just to, if you want to go on a walk, especially now, revision, get out there, clear your heads, or even just in general as it's getting to spring. So yeah, no, I think that's definitely a great point, is just exploring what's already on campus.
It's funny, isn't it? I think the whole woodlands thing, I don't think it matters whether you were here 10, 15 years ago or whether you're a student now. I think it's something that seems to get missed off the radar, because I didn't even know they existed until I started working here. With my course, I did geography as well, and we were all based on the east side, and I never had to go past the library. So the whole West Park campus was alien to me, and then the woodlands at the far end, like we've got these amazing, like say, 2 ancient woodlands at the top of campus that is accessible for people to walk around. is just it's crazy that people don't know that that's on site. So I think there's certainly promoting that and getting people out there would be great.
This definitely sounds like a great opportunity to do the Bluebell Walk when that comes up. The bluebells are absolutely beautiful, so maybe that's one for the diary, that one.
Absolutely. You know what? I feel like I was very lucky because I started around the time that the bluebells were coming out, and I had some colleagues who knew about the woods and took me there in one of my first weeks here. So I feel like I've known pretty much the whole time I've been here. And I know that there are some wildlife walks that are starting to take place from towards the end of January. I'm not entirely sure when we'll have this episode out, whether it will be before that first one, but they're going to be fortnightly. So you can kind of have a bit of a walk around and really appreciate the wildlife that we have on campus, which doesn't include Charlie the cat, but maybe it should. But you know, even just from walking from meeting to meeting, I've seen so many different animals. It's really lovely. It's a really nice kind of nice thing to your day just to see the ducks having a little waddle around. It's very sweet. And then we'll just move on to the last question, which Polly, I think you've touched on a little bit already, which is great. But just if Elliott and Jenny, or Polly, if you have any more, any top tips for kind of living a more sustainable life, other than getting involved in all the wonderful initiatives that we have on campus, obviously, if there's anything else.
I think Jenny and I were actually talking about this earlier when knowing that we were coming on the podcast, and I think I kind of wanted to give a bit more of a personal spin on this element, because I think for me it's about what you choose to do in everyday life, and it's about balance. Like myself and Jenny, we work in this every day, we do this every day, but I think Jenny used the term, we're not green goddesses or gods. We're not perfect. I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is that actually we do want to travel abroad. We do want to have that, and you can't always feel guilty about that. I think it's just about balance, and it's about making choices in your life where you can balance those things out. So I've consciously made a decision that actually I won't do long haul flights every single year. I choose to do that every 3-4 years, because I've got friends that live out in Australia and things like that. I'm not going to do that every year. I've reduced my red meat consumption. So I was very much sporty. I was kind of like, you've got to eat meat. Whereas actually, I've changed my perspective on that as I've learned and educated myself more. And I've changed my diet. I still have meat as part of my diet, but I've massively reduced that. And I don't really eat red meat anymore now. So, and it's not about preaching to people that they have to do certain things. I think it's just about finding what you can do within your life to make those small changes. And the more you can make those smaller changes, the bigger impact you'll have.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Elliott on that. I mean, again, as being part of the sustainability team, you know, we've I suppose I do. I feel I should, you know, be this guiding light and really demonstrate best sustainability practice. But realistically, I've tried going plastic free. I have children. You don't want to know how many lunch boxes and small plastic containers I've lost. I mean, the carbon footprint of them alone probably outweighs a roll of little plastic bags. So it is kind of balancing these things up, and it's the small changes. I mean, my children have decided they want to be vegetarians. So to be honest, in our house, we probably are mainly vegetarian-based meals. It's very rare we buy meat in, especially red meat anyway. Using reusable bottles, reusable cups is great. There's nothing worse than just having stacks and stacks of plastic bottles everywhere. It's a nightmare. I mean, I've tried all kinds of things. I've tried grow your own veg and things like that. That was wonderful until you get bored of it and it'll just die. And I'm not very good with plants. So I have some carrots. They're about that big. And I get a tomato plant off the neighbour every year, and we have tomatoes, just endless tomatoes. So the whole idea of seasonal and grow your own is wonderful. We used to be very sustainable as we travelled as a family. We sort of, at one point, we only had one car and we'd cycle everywhere. I had a massive family bike. It was great. I think back to my grandparents, and whenever you'd go around and Grandad would go down the bottom of the garden and take tomatoes out his greenhouse, instead of putting them in a plastic bag, he'd bring out an old bread bag that's about 3 years old from like a loaf of bread, just because, oh, it's too good a bag. You don't throw them. These nice strong bags, these ones, you don't throw these ones away. And you have a stack of bags in the drawer. And it's little things like that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with both of you. I think that, you know, being sustainable, wanting to be sustainable is a fantastic thing, but you know, you have to admit there are limits, and you know, no one's perfect, everyone's human. You know, like even personally, there are times where I, you know, use plastic where I could be saving, but it's just not as easy And I think especially with the cost of living right now, you know, sustainability is a privilege to an extent. You know, if you can't, and also vegan alternatives tend to be a bit expensive, to be honest with you. Kind of, I mean, Aldi's come out with a fantastic range, which is great for anyone who wants to be it. And I feel like people immediately, if someone asks you, oh, how can you be sustainable? There are some diehard people which are like, go vegan, stop eating any animals. And I'm like, well, no, you don't have to do that. And it's quite hard to cut it out. And then you've got to change, you know, everything you've learned, all your meal plans. So if you do want to cut something out, yeah, red meat, beef is probably, you know, one of the worst, you know, animals for the environment. So if you want to cut something out, go for that. But yeah, it's not necessary, and just little things. I mean, I know I've seen loads of students who refuse to buy plastic bags at supermarkets to the point where they really should just buy one because they're trying to carry like, you know, 20 things home because they forgot one. But yeah, no, that's great. Kind of just reducing as you can. And also, yeah, I think education is the most important. I feel like the younger generation, especially, we know more about it and it's kind of been ingrained in us, whereas, you know, older people, maybe our parents aren't that knowledgeable, and maybe, you know, when you go home saying to them, oh, why don't you make this swap, why don't you try this, will actually have a huge impact. But yeah, being sustainable, I think there is loads of information out there as well to use, and kind of food is a, like, if you're looking at food wastage, your freezer is your best friend. You can freeze, so I freeze basically everything. You like bread, fantastic in the freezer. If you want toast, you literally just pop it in the toaster, defrost setting, good as new. If you grate cheese, freeze it, that's good for months. So then you're not, you know, you haven't got your food wastage. Same with veggies, you know, wash, freeze, yeah, wash, chop, freeze. That's perfect. I go to supermarkets and you see the reduced section, and then like really nice things like even like tender stem broccoli is down to like 20p. You're like, okay, take that, cut, freeze, sorted. And yeah, it's just kind of little things you can do that would reduce plastic usage, reduce your environmental footprint. But don't feel bad, and don't let, you know, other people make you feel bad.
I think those are all great tips. We've got some good ones in there. Jemima, I don't know if you have any sustainable tips, but I think we mentioned it earlier, Vinted can be your best friend, particularly not just buying from there, but also selling the clothes that you don't wear anymore, giving them a new lease of life with someone else. I'm vegan, but that was a personal choice that I will put my hands up to, was not sustainability focused at all. But through making meals for other people and showing them that vegan food can taste nice, I now have a lot of people in my life who will have like a vegan meal at a restaurant sometimes, or have one vegan or vegetarian day a week. So it's not, as we've all said, like, it's not about being perfect. It's not about kind of preaching to people, but just showing people the different options. I also have a partner who is very eco-conscious, almost to a fault. He keeps himself up at night worrying about how many roads there are in the UK. That's his current anxiety focus. But it means that I've had my eyes open to a lot of stuff because he reads a lot of books around sustainability. So there's lots of resources out there if you want to know more. But he also has the most wonderful talent for reusing anything as a plant pot. So if you have avid gardeners, turns out you can use pretty much anything to grow a plant, I have learnt. Plastic bottles, the old drawers off of a desk that we don't use anymore. That was an interesting one.
Now this
An old
sounds like a
saucepan.
workshop outside EHB or something at this point. I think you need to bring him along and set him up. And,
Honestly,
you know, demonstrating, here's a bag full of things. Make plant pots.
he would do it. He would do it. We currently have an old saucepan in our kitchen, which now has plants growing in it. It's very impressive. So what I'm trying to say is you can make anything into a plant pot, and I fully encourage it.
There's so many like switches and changes you can make. I think the first like switch I made when I moved to university was purposely not buying like fruit and veg in plastic. I think it's the one thing you can do, and like I don't really understand why. Like when you're cooking for yourself, why do you do it? Because do you need 25 carrots in that bag, and are you going to use them all before they go to waste? Realistically not. And also, weird thing, I like bananas, but I don't have a banana every day. So like a bunch of bananas go off in like a week. So I'm now just buying like 2 bananas in a bunch. I'm merry on my way. But definitely there's lots of like sustainable tips that you can do and stuff that you can get involved with. I think one of the projects I was involved with recently was Loughborough Gold. I got to jar the bees' honey, which was very, very exciting. I did get a jar for myself as well. Very good honey, if you could buy it. But also like shopping independently and like supporting small businesses is also like really sustainable. Sourcing things locally as well. Try not to Amazon it. It's really, really, sometimes it can be really hard because you need it next day, but just try not to. And try and get things locally, I think is one of my like big tips, and shop independently. And charity shops, amazing. Especially like if you love your fashion, love your clothes, you can get like, my friend got a pair of Dickies and Levi's the other day from a charity shop for like 10 quid. So it's possible, it can be done. Just, and like you guys said, it's not about like limiting yourself. It's not about like making sure you are the epitome of a green like person, eco person, but just knowing your limits and trying to swap out some things. Like I don't really eat meat anymore, just because I've realized it's not a necessity for me. I get my protein a lot of different ways, but that's just a personal choice as well. Thank you everyone for your beautiful tips on sustainability. I hope everyone enjoyed listening to this episode. It was extremely, extremely interesting. I learned so many new facts as well. Thank you for joining Loughborough University's Let's Talk Loughborough. Don't forget to subscribe on all platforms. And you can watch us on the Loughborough University YouTube channel as well. But thank you everyone for joining today again. Elliott, Polly and Jenny, it's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget that you can send us in ideas for any future podcast episodes by letting us know via the Loughborough University Instagram or Twitter, or you can leave us a little YouTube comment, whichever you would like. Let us know what you want to hear about next. Thank you all so much for joining us.